here's an idea of how I use my intuition. So I was in Paris. I had moved from New York to Paris, and I needed to find an apartment. And Paris is so administrative and so just unbelievable. Everything is very bureaucratic and paper and so on. And so when you apply to a thing, you have to give them like a dossier about you, a whole sort of history of who you are and everything. And I had just arrived in Paris, so I didn't have a history in Paris. And I was, it was in the summer, and I was trying to find a place, and apparently everybody's looking for homes in the summer, so I kept finding these apartments, and I was in a hurry. I wanted to get into my home because I love my home. My home is my kingdom. So I would apply to these apartments, and I would get turned down, and every time I found one, and they were like okay, they weren't even that amazing, they were just okay. But I was like, I want a home, and I just want, and I would get turned down, one after the other, and I was staying in this friend's house, in this friend's mom's house, which is beautiful, but I felt like I've been here for so long, I really should just get my apartment. And I was so one day I was just kind of walking around Paris, and I sat in a little park, and it was a beautiful little park. I could hear the church bells, and I could hear the birds singing, and it was so peaceful. And I was eating my little ham and cheese sandwich, and I finished, and then I was heading home, and I walked through a little street, and I thought, what a pretty street! How gorgeous is this street? So I actually walked back to write down the name of the street, and this was the name of the street. It's called Rue Las Cases. But because first time I saw this, I thought it's Las Casas, it's something Spanish or whatever. So I wrote it down, and I went home, and I just thought, oh, what a beautiful street! What a dream it would be to live on such a beautiful street. And then I came back to London. I had to come back to London for something, and I met this wonderful friend of mine, and I was telling her about my struggles with my home, and she introduced me to The Secret. And The Secret is this book that's all about being grateful and basically raising our energy and believing we can get things. And it's a great introduction to a lot of the laws of manifestation and all that. And it was like a huge, it did so well, that book, when it came out. So she gave me this little book, which I read on the train on the way back. So I was like working with my gratitude list and all the things I was grateful for, and I was trying to stay in that really good place. And I got a call, on arrival in Paris, I got a call from an estate agent who'd been away for the summer. And she said to me, yeah, I just got back. I have an apartment on Rue Las Cases. But I didn't make the connection because I had it at Las Cases, so I thought she was talking about something else. And so I got there, and here was my dream apartment. Just out of this world, dream apartment. And I walked in, and I was like, oh my God, this is like the most gorgeous place, etc. And I put my dossier in, and it was higher than my budget, and it got approved. And so what happened in this occasion was that, one, my energy was lousy before, because I was going around whinging to everyone about how I wasn't finding a place, and how it was so depressing, and how I was just still floating there without a home. And when I came back, I was in that space where I was thinking gratitude, and I'm so grateful, and I'm in Paris, and I'm in this beautiful home, and how lucky I am, and I had changed my vibe. So one, life waited for me to get out of my funk so that it could start to sort of create some good things for me. And the second thing that happened was that here I was trying all these different random apartments that were not so nice. And the universe was kind of saying, I don't think these are really for you. And instead I got the most gorgeous apartment maybe the most beautiful apartment I'd seen ever. It was such a beautiful apartment, higher than my budget, got approved when all the others did not. And somebody had been living, the apartment had been redone, and someone had lived there for 2 months, and she had to go back to New York for some reason. So she was whizzed out of her contract. So that apartment was not even available. So life was waiting for something so amazing to be available for me. And in the end, those few years in that apartment ended up being revolutionary in my life in terms of, they call Paris the city of light. It was where I learned about meditation, and where I started writing my first book, and Paris ended up being a magical space, and I really believe it was all of that because I was in this beautiful space that felt like a sanctuary, and it was a creative sanctuary, and it took me deeper within me, and I could hear the church bells from my apartment, and it was just so soothing and such a beautiful place. So when we trust that there's an order to things, I was there a few months of total frustrations of not being able to find a home, and my energy was dropping and dropping, and it was just getting worse and worse. And I had to change the energy and just trust that life had a plan of its own in the right order at the right time for how it was going to evolve. So if we reframe everything that actually life is trying to work it out in our favor, then things come, things go, we get rejected, an email gets turned down, an offer gets, we're like, it's okay, there's something even better coming up than this, you know. So I think it's really important to keep that in mind, because kind of life is working actually in your favor at all times, even when it's not looking like that.